Yo, yo, yo. What is up, everybody? Welcome in. This counter doesn't even work anymore. Gonna take it off. But ladies and gentlemen, we do have a special guest today for this stream. Monsieur Z. Let me pull up your channel and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, audience. Mr. Z here, or Monsieur, however you'd like to say it. Thanks to Depressed Ginger for bringing me on. I've seen some of your stuff, and I was aware of you for a good while. This is kind of the first time we've had a proper conversation. I gotta say, I've seen like a lot of the posts you put on X. I'd say we have alignment on quite a couple things. But yeah, we're here to talk a little bit about. I don't know if you want to do the introduction, but we'll be talking about some interesting subjects today, I do believe.
Right. And so, well, the first thing I wanted to ask you, your channel name. It seems like it would be a challenge to market it.
Ain't that the truth? Well, I'll tell you, when I was starting YouTube, I didn't think too much about that. I wasn't thinking about the long-term strategy of the channel. I just thought, you know what? Mr. Z is the name I want to go with. But, there was already a channel going by Mr. Z at that time. Then I said, hey, I'm learning French. How's about Monsieur Z? That works just fine. Well, it did, and eventually I realized, wow, nobody can pronounce or spell my name.
Right.
So I figured, hey, it's been this long. I'm not gonna change it just because. And I've had a couple people bring up I should change it for any number of reasons, including when the war between Ukraine and Russia broke out, and the Z kind of became a Russian symbol. They're like, "Hey, you should change that as a sign of solidarity with Ukraine." I'm like, "Heck no, I'm not changing my
Oh,
name for a freaking war in a foreign country. Heck no."
man.
But yeah, it's just sort of stuck. Like Monsieur Z is not going away. We do have a second channel, USZ, so that's a little easier to find. But yeah, I'd say yeah, I'm content with the name.
Yeah. Well, people tell me that I should change my name, but when you have a YouTube channel and you get to a certain amount of subscribers, there's no going back. You're not changing it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
how did
guys.
you get your name, if you don't mind me asking?
Um, when I was younger, I went through some things, and the whole ginger thing, you kind of play into a joke, and so it was just kind of that combination. But I think when it comes to channel names, it's just got to be unique and preferably, easy to pronounce. If I was you, I mean, you just got to leave your
Hmm.
name as is. But guys, make sure you subscribe to Mr. Z. I mean, I think Mr. Z is a really good name for like a historian.
Is it now?
Yeah, it
I
sounds
like
really
it.
nice.
I do think it's got a I think it's got a charisma to it.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get into some stuff. And when it comes to the tariffs and
And I
everything,
will say, just right before we get too into anything, I do apologize if my Wi-Fi like cuts out or anything. I'm like doing the Appalachian Trail, so I've got like rural West Virginia Wi-Fi right now. But if I sound stable, then hey, all good.
right? Are you from? Where are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
Born and
Um,
raised. Love it there. A lot of people give New York hate. Look, I get it. In conservative spheres, it's common to hate on the big cities, but look, as someone who's been basically all over the country, we were talking about this earlier. Nowhere feels like home the way New York feels like home. I've spent time in other states. I've spent like long term time in other states, and I keep missing it. I just keep, I couldn't see myself anywhere else long term.
yeah, but you don't miss the taxes.
You know, who would miss taxes? But hey, look, with what Trump's working on, we might not have to worry about that too long. It's not guaranteed, but hey,
Yeah.
we might see some type of compromise there.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue. Let's get into the income tax and everything like that in terms of what Trump's doing, because the way I look at it, Doge originally said they wanted to save $1 trillion. Now Musk has come out and said in the fiscal year 2026 we're saving 150 billion. So it's obviously well short of the trillion. And then Trump said, well, we're going to save a total of $2 trillion in terms of the Doge cuts and then supposedly cutting the budget. And then that's how, and also the revenue from the tariffs and everything like that. And that's how we're going to be able to get rid of the income tax. People keep telling me we're going to get rid of the income tax. It's going to go away. How can we afford this, though? I mean, that's the major thing that I'm thinking about, just because, I mean, I like Doge and what they're doing, but it's obvious it's not going to be $1 trillion. And so I would like Doge to look at the Pentagon. I don't know if they're doing it, but what do you think about where Trump is with these taxes? No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Can we afford this?
Yeah, the logistics of it are sort of the tricky thing because both Trump and Musk came in with these bold propositions, and as I think you brought it up, Musk had said what 3 trillion in savings, something like that. And of course, Trump going in with his proposal to abolish well, not mind you, it was all hypothetical. It's like, hey, we might do this. Now, Trump has doubled down on that recently, where he says, look, I've spoken to a lot of intelligent people. They're saying we could definitely get this done. Um, where it is right now, you've had experts as well who are like, it's not really doable. It's not doable because if we do tariff countries, not only do we have to consider that, it's limited how much money we can actually gain from tariffs. They're arguing if we tariff more countries, less trade comes in, meaning the numbers we're looking at now shouldn't be relied upon. We should expect the numbers to be lower. On the flip side of that, you also have the matter of partial abolition of the income tax, where it is reduced for, I think this was a metric that came out like a month ago, where it was said theoretically, in a worst case scenario, if the tariffs are operating, at the minimum amount that people think that they would, you could still cut the income tax for people below an income of 150,000, and you'd be able to coast by pretty decently, but things would still be stable. What was the number? It was after Trump's tariffs, with the tariffs paused at 10% for all these other countries and China at the high rate and rising rate that it seems to be at. We're raking in, I think, an additional $1 billion per day for the country, which is, that's nothing to scoff at. That's pretty damn significant.
Yeah, let me just say, $21 billion so far. Trump said today.
He said 21 billion.
Yeah, so far.
Wow. And it's only been what, like 2 weeks?
Right.
That's phenomenal stuff.
But
But
let's also
if this trend is kept up, it is, like I said, it doesn't even need to be like a complete sweep. And I think we brought this up earlier. I had brought it up earlier, where before we started the stream, I should say, he's putting a lot of goals out there, and he is doing a shoot for the moon type of situation. But even if you don't like hit that target, you're still going to go really, really far. You're still grabbing a lot of the goals, you're making a lot of progress, and that's something you can show people and say, look, we've made things better. Even if we didn't reach the exact endpoint, we got really, really far with it. And, when you have a lot of goals and you're seeing what sticks, you can actually muster some genuine results from that.
No, I agree 100%. We can stay on the tax situation here for a second. When it comes to utilizing the capitalist society that we have, in terms of, I mean, we know the top 1% pay like 50% in taxes, and Trump has also talked about, well, there's going to be no taxes on income under 150K. And I think you referenced that a few minutes ago. And so maybe the real goal here would be to attack the offshore accounts by the multi-billion-dollar corporations, the billionaires, because that's where a sizable amount of money is going, and it's costing us tax revenue. If we could go after that, that might be a way to where you're not really disturbing the ultra-rich in terms of upping their taxes too much, but you're also going after the corporations in terms of generating significant revenue because you're cutting off their offshore accounts and everything like that. So maybe that could be a happy medium in terms of being able to generate some of this revenue. I'm just concerned we already have the $2 trillion deficit. Now we've got Trump saying, well, the military budget's going to be up to $1 billion. The math is not really mathing here, but I think Trump is on the right path, and let's just see what the budget ends up being. And so that's really what I would say when it comes to that. And then just tell us about, the historical precedent with all of these tariffs and everything that's going on with the tariffs.
Sure. Well, first I'd want to start with attacking offshore bank accounts is a solid approach. The thing about the PR angle on that, you are tackling anti-American practices. First, it's the companies that send their business overseas. Now it's those businessmen and corporations who don't want to keep their money here, who don't want to give back their fair share to the country. It's yeah, they're scamming us, and that's got to be stopped. One of the big things I talk about, one of the huge advantages that Trump and the right could really take advantage of is appealing to a lot of the economic left, especially in the youth population. Because what you're doing, or what Trump is doing, I should say, is really sort of bloodying the nose of a lot of these moneyed interests, which have taken advantage of America and Americans by, again, sending jobs overseas, by hiring people who will do the work for a lot less, even if they're not Americans, and they don't put that money, they don't cycle that money back into the economy. You're having practices which ultimately, whether you're on the right or left, you got to recognize that economically, this is going to benefit the average American a lot more. Insofar as the historic precedent for the tariffs and whatnot, the United States historically has been a very self-sufficient country. We had periods where, and yeah, I should say, free trade and protected trade was a big issue back in the early 1800s when you had sort of the divide between the South and the northern states. Now, the southern states, because they were primarily agricultural and they were sort of dependent on the industry of Britain to, provide them with produced goods, what they would do is they'd advocate hard for free trade. They're like, look, we want to send our produce, our cotton, all of our material to Britain, and they'll send us this, and we don't want any barriers with that. But the people in the north, where you did have this budding industry economy, were saying, we can't survive off of this because you're relying on foreign manufacturing instead of what we have here. We can't grow. We can't compete. We cannot produce on the same scale Britain has because Britain has this massive empire. It's almost the same situation that we have with China, where China, because they do have this, and we are a land empire today, but China, with their large land empire and their large population of over 1 billion people who are willing to work for much less than Americans are, can produce all of these goods and export them to the whole world. Britain, dominating the global economy with their empire, with their cheap labor, whether it be in India or wherever, were able to produce these goods and ship them over to the U.S. Now, the big thing, and this was sort of the American system as it was proposed by Henry Clay, was we need to invest more in making things here in America. We cannot survive as basically a continued dependency of Europe and of Britain. Now, again, this doesn't necessarily mean we have to be unfriendly to them. We can be on good relations with all these countries. We just don't want to be well, not a puppet of them, but we don't want to be dependent on them. It's like the situation with Europe and us. People call the Europeans our allies, but we cover their military so much. And what do they give to us? Not really a lot in return. Can you really call them an ally if they're dependent upon us? If without our defense, they would crumble? Now, look at that in terms of trade. Can we really say that we're a free people if some of the stuff we depend upon the most, like medication, the technology that's going into cars, going into phones, going to like national security devices, whether it be like weaponry, missiles, what have you? Can we really say that we're free if we need all this stuff that comes from China? If they were to cut us off, we'd be screwed. There's no two ways about it. Um, and having that self-sufficiency, it is an American tradition. It is something that we've really prided ourselves on for as long as we have been an influential power.
Right. No, absolutely. And you take a look at where the economy is right now, just like we were talking about earlier. With economics, we know there's trade-offs. We know there's going to be negative. Trump is doing all the negative early because of these tariffs and the instability within the markets. And there are, believe it or not, a lot of great byproducts that are produced from this instability. There's been lower inflation because of it. and we're going to see lower interest rates. Now you've got this clown Powell who said earlier today that, it's just all these liberal talking points. It's total partisanship. It's ridiculous talking about the Fed. I know people are worried about that. The Fed will cut the rates in June. This has been known. In May, if you look at the odds, it's not going to happen. So the Fed's going to cut the rates in June. And just what I've been saying is I think Trump is laying a great bedrock for the economy because you have this short-term issue. And look, I think Trump understands because people keep saying, well, Trump, he doesn't know what he's doing. There's going to be all this haziness in the market for 4 years. At a certain point, Trump is going to say, this is the tariffs that are staying on. It's X, Y, and Z. We've done all the negotiations. The rest are coming off. And whenever that happens within the next 4 or 5 months, that's when we're going to have the stable footing. And we already have the low inflation. We have the low energy costs. Gas is down everywhere. It's right in the golden zone. When you look at the crude oil futures, they're exactly where we would want them. It's like anywhere from $55 to $75. It's at $61 right now. So I say Trump has a great bedrock for this economy, and the tariffs, this is just needed. I mean, they say, oh, they're inflationary and stuff. Well, how do you know that? We don't even know the tariffs Trump's going to be keeping on. And I also think it's important people understand when it comes to the revenue we generate from the tariffs, we've generated a lot of revenue, but a lot of those tariffs have already been removed or brought down to 10% global. So the revenue is going to go down. Now, the revenue with China is still high because we're tariffing them significantly more right now. But when we negotiate with them, that's probably also going to go down. Now, I still think we can generate $200 or $300 billion per year in tariff money at least. That's kind of a lowball estimate. I just don't know what Trump's going to do with them. But I did do a video earlier today talking about how Trump plans to isolate the Chinese by negotiating with other countries and saying, we don't want you trading with China, because what China was doing the first time during Trump's first term is the Chinese would send their products to Vietnam and South Korea and all these other countries, and then they would send those to the United States to get around the tariffs. So now Trump's saying, no, we're going to put barriers in place to not allow that. And so I think it's very important. But I also wanted to get your take on the situation right now with Russia and Ukraine. Just give me your best projection on Zelensky now going crazy, wanting to buy all these Patriot missile systems for billions. Trump's telling him, no, it's not going to happen. What do you think happens here? Now there was a ceasefire. Now there's no ceasefire. It was like an infrastructure ceasefire. So just give me your take on that.
Right before I get into that, I just wanted to add one last thing to the economic discussion, which is this. It is incredibly difficult to rely upon the so-called experts right now because many of these experts are educated in a world where the US has been the global hegemon, where free trade, where this economic liberalism is all they know and all they have studied. They don't have a worldview of economics prior to this. And, they might have some impression of what tariffs were, and they'd argue, well, they were terrible because they're the opposite of what we have now, which is good. And yeah, it's not the best thing to rely upon. Often touted around during the campaigning, prior to Trump winning, was these economic experts. What was it? 24 Nobel Prize winners or something had said that Kamala Harris's plan would keep the economy stable and Trump's plan would destroy the economy. All these experts, they're only familiar with the economically liberal world order that we currently have. I've read through Kamala Harris's economic plan, which I doubt she had any hand in writing, but it was more of the same. It was a continuation of Bill Clinton third wayism. It was a continuation of certain Obama era policies. Surprisingly, not too many continuations of Biden's policies, which is kind of funny, but also telling because there was a little bit of overlap between what Biden said he wanted and what Trump's America First policy was, insofar as Biden saying, hey, bring more manufacturing back to America, invest more in infrastructure. Of course, his party hijacked that, and they put a ton of crap in there. I mean, everybody knew about what was it, like a 4,000 page bill, and like on every couple of pages, it's like, DEI this, women's opportunity that. It's like, okay, where's the infrastructure? Where's the actual infrastructure?
Where's the Project 2025?
Where is the Project 2025?
We're waiting on that.
Yeah, they're still talking about it. They're still saying, "Hey, Trump is doing it right now." Which, look, to be fair, there are some people involved with the administration who have like heritage ties. But look, the whole Project 2025 thing, it got scrapped. It didn't get done. Plainly it didn't. That's a whole different discussion. But to answer your question about Russia and Ukraine, from the very beginning, and I'd spoken about this repeatedly on my channel, and I tried not to because I didn't want to be one of those channels where it's like I'm just giving people an update every single week and nothing has changed. But it kind of got to the point where like every couple months I'd be like, look, I'm gonna repeat what I said last time, and I'm gonna tell you how it's continuing to go this way because this is sort of the situation. But Russia got involved in this situation. It got involved in this war. It invaded Ukraine because of the threat that Zelensky had posed, because the threat that Zelensky's regime had posed to sort of Russia's dynamic, which was trying to keep the West from encroaching further into its own territory. Now, you say this, and what the left immediately jumps to is like, that's a Russian talking point. You're a Putin shill. It's like, consider for a moment you're in Russia's situation. Wipe away the geopolitics. Imagine you are a Russian. Imagine you are Putin. Imagine all these countries to the west of you have basically isolated you. They're not particularly friendly to you, and they say the only way they'll sit down is if you utterly change your political dynamic. It's not that, it's not Russia that's the problem, it's you, the leader of Russia. It is the Russian people who support you. It's like, well, I won you can give any number of arguments as to how democratic Russia is. But the fact is, Putin sort of recognized this. For a long time, this isn't a recent thing. It's been sort of the status quo since 2000, if not, since the Cold War ended. So Zelensky comes to power, and his promises are we are going to end the war in the Donbass and retake that territory. We are going to re annex Crimea, and we are going to join the European Union and NATO. Like, if you're Russia, how do you let that stand? Like, that is a direct threat to your security there. So the Russians invade, they get involved in the situation, and the impression that I imagine was on Zelensky's mind, and probably what a lot of the people in the West and the leadership in the US might have told him, is that, hey, if Russia attacks you, we'll get involved and we'll protect you. But what the war come off of? It came off of the US's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, America from the COVID pandemic, mind you, as well. Americans just feeling like, look, we don't want to be involved in any more of these conflicts. So this conflict sparks up in Ukraine, and the US does everything short of putting boots on the ground. You sanction Russia, you basically isolate them as much as you possibly can. You give as many resources to Ukraine as you possibly can. People talk a lot about all the resources we give to Israel. And it's true, they are the largest cumulative recipient of American aid, but Ukraine has received almost, well, more than half of what they've received in the span of like, what, 3 years or so across all of Israel's history. So that goes to show like how much aid Ukraine has received. Now, Zelensky was probably under the impression that the Americans are going to keep supporting me, and this will be a war. This will be a war of attrition, where we'll be able to wear the Russians down, even though we have a smaller population. We have more resources behind us, and that's true. I said even before the war began, if Russia and Ukraine went to war, the only advantage Ukraine has is its ally. Well, what winds up happening is Ukraine's allies, or I should say the United States, because the United States is the big military ally that Ukraine has. Sure, there's the EU country, but they're, nowhere near the same capacity that the US has. They're nowhere near that same potential. So you strip away the US, and it's a war of attrition between Russia and Ukraine. Russia has more manpower, Russia has more resources, Russia has, I'm not going to say better weaponry, but they are better geared, better equipped to fight this type of war. We have, we're able to give Ukraine these advanced weapon systems. Air power is something that we sort of excel in the West. Russia is very much a land power. They're able to move in, push in, grab land, and hold it. There were a lot of talks early on about like, oh, Russia is losing all these vehicles. This is a disaster for Russia. Well, Russia can crank out a bunch of those machines for super cheap because they're made to be disposable. Our equipment, however, is not. Our equipment is advanced. It takes a long while to produce it, and it takes even longer to train somebody how to use it. So if you shoot down a fighter pilot, well, you've lost a plane that's super expensive, and now you got to train a new pilot. I'm sort of going on a tangent, I guess. But the point is, the war was never going to favor Ukraine. The best they could have hoped for is to have just tired Russia out and force Russia to concede. Now, again, with the US out of the picture and saying, well, recognizing the reality, this war has continued on for so long and little progress has been made on both sides. Russia is clearly the winner insofar as the fact that they have gained land. They've taken land that the Ukrainians simply cannot take back. So Ukraine has to come to the negotiating table. They're probably going to have to make some more concessions, and Zelensky really doesn't want that. The best thing, genuinely the best thing I think Zelensky could hope for is for whatever remains of Ukraine, which I think is going to be the lands west of the Dnieper River. I think everything east might have to be ceded to appease Russia because it's a security concern. It's not just about the lands that have ethnic Russians, it is about Russia having this defensible territory from any possible European encroachment. What nobody talks about, which is frustrating, is European warfare. You talk about the situation that we saw in World War One and World War Two. People think, oh, that's outdated. Wait, why are we seeing trench warfare in Ukraine? It's like, that's what warfare in Europe looks like. When you have these advanced weapon systems, when you have, fully automatic guns, you're going to need trenches. You need to be able to take cover from that because guess what? A lot of Europe exists on the European plain, and a lot of Russia's territory exists on the European plain. It's not easy to defend that. But if you have the Dnieper River, that's a natural barrier. That is a natural advantage that I'm inclined to believe that Russia actually wants. So Zelensky's best situation, his best hope, would be to cede that territory and whatever remains of Ukraine to join NATO, well, not even NATO, because that's a whole separate thing, but to join the EU and to join whatever military arrangement succeeds NATO. And, I'm inclined to think that Trump doesn't fully want to scrap NATO, but he doesn't want it to be this thing where it's like, oh, if all of if one country is attacked, the US has to suddenly get involved in war. It's going to be more of a we'll provide you aid type of thing. Uh, so I'm inclined to believe that the Europeans are going to form their own NATO. Macron talked about this. Zelensky talked about a European NATO. I feel that's going to be what you see Ukraine joining, and they're going to get militarized to the teeth. You look at what Poland is doing; they've embarked on the largest militarization program they have in their history, and they're inclined to become the most formidable military in Europe after this is done. More powerful than France if you don't consider France's nuclear arsenal. The Ukrainians, no doubt, are going to follow suit. The Poles are definitely going to help them because Polish security is kind of going to be tied to Ukrainian security. You might even see something akin to like the Intermarium Alliance remanifest. I know that's people think it's a little memey because it's kind of this old alliance that didn't manifest. But look, it exists for a reason. The Poles have this vision of being a defender of Eastern Europe and working with the strongest Eastern European countries, namely Ukraine, to keep Russia at bay. Those geopolitics still really hate the Russians, and the Ukrainians are going to hate the Russians a lot more after this war is done. So they make for natural allies with one another, and they're probably the best suited to help one another out.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the way I see the situation, the easiest way to break it down in terms of Ukraine's chances without NATO help in terms of actual physical involvement with troops, the land is just there's no way it's going to be brought back to Ukraine. And then you're talking about more escalation. It's exactly what Trump has argued against. But it's interesting you talked about like a NATO EU. I mean, that's basically just the EU in general. I guess also including the UK, just because of how powerful the United States is when it comes to NATO. And that's an interesting segue. In terms of this war, whatever happens, however much land they give up, um, what do you think in terms of Trump possibly moving to leaving NATO? Is that something that Trump should do? Should he use it maybe as a bargaining chip? And then I do also want to get your opinion on Greenland. But what do you think about like the United States leaving NATO? There's a lot of people, a lot of Republicans saying there's no point in terms of our defense of Europe. There's an Atlantic Ocean separating us. It's very, I mean, you see people like Piers Morgan. This is a Brit who obviously is very concerned with Russia. We're not even close to the same geographical position as they are. So, what is the point of defending them at this point? And I mean, like you said, you were right on the money in terms of we have sent them so much support in terms of just sheer money. Now, Trump, he likes to round up and he says it's like, 360 billion, but it's still like 180, 190 billion. It's a lot of money we've sent them in terms of the weapons. And it's also kind of funny. Ukraine has more technologically advanced weapons than Russia because of NATO alone. But I want to get your thoughts on what do you think about Trump possibly positioning to leave NATO?
It's absolutely possible that we could leave NATO. It's not the smartest move right now because if we were to leave NATO immediately, people, and again, this is some people might now say I'm a left winger for saying this, but if we were to leave right now, if we were to pull out of NATO immediately, that would embolden Russia to try to move onto the Baltic states. Now, NATO has been one of the prime, well, it has been basically the reason Russia hasn't encroached upon that land. Where are they focusing on? It's the land that we don't really have a presence in, but might have a presence in sometime soon, i.e., Ukraine, Georgia, those types of situations. But the Baltics, they're not particularly easy for the Europeans to defend because Russia is right there on their border. Poland might be able to lend them some support, but you're talking about the Poles going up against all of Russia. Yeah, they definitely have all of Europe supporting them, but like right now is not the right time for that. I think Trump is smart enough to not want to cause chaos in that region because I mean, one, that's going to tarnish his legacy. If you want to look at it from a purely selfish point of view, it would tarnish his legacy. But the practical point of view is we don't want to cause more conflict and death in the world. We want to have perpetual peace. We want to leave an area stable. That's it. We want to leave it and leave it as clean as we possibly can. And I guess there's also a geopolitically selfish aspect to that, which is if we were to immediately pull out of NATO, Russia invades the Baltics, and there's a giant European war. The European perspective is always going to be that we are a treacherous country, and more than that, we're an enemy country. So they're going to be a lot more hostile to us in the future. If we want to have perpetual peace, the smart move, I would say, is remaining in NATO for the time being, gradually dialing down our involvement so we can wean the Europeans off of that, encourage the Europeans to form their own alliance, which we will not be a part of, and once they've set that up, once they have their military and their security in their own hands, then we can leave. Some people would argue, oh well, Russia's too weak to move on the Baltics right now. The Russians, yes, they haven't had significant advances in Ukraine, but and this might be controversial, but I'm inclined to believe that this is all part of their strategy. The Russians move very slowly in everything they do because they want to have a safe, gradual victory. If you look at what they did in Georgia, if you look at the Chechenian wars, if you look at not even the recent invasion of Ukraine like a few years ago, but the long-term war with Ukraine that has existed since the Euromaidan uprising, Russia is gradual. They're willing to take their time if it means they succeed. And insofar as Ukraine, they're content with whittling them down. They have the manpower to do it. It's tough to make clear how true some of the rumors are that Russia is like getting more and more desperate to hire soldiers. That could absolutely be possible. I'm more inclined to think that the Russians are just sort of biding their time. And a lot of the claims the Ukrainians make about how many Russians that they're taking down is exaggerated. We'll find out after all's said and done, and after the war's done. But under the fog of war right now, Russia is probably more powerful than we're making them out to be. And if they really tried to steamroll through Ukraine, they could, but it would be a risky move and it could sabotage everything they've done up until this point. There's also the factor that people will say this as well as controversial because, oh, well, Russia has to depend upon North Korea for its for its ammunition and its weaponry now. Not true. Russia has kind of reindustrialized and reinvigorated its war machine. It's kind of like us after, after the Great Depression and getting into World War II. Their war machine is pumping out, what is it? The same quantity of munitions that it takes us to produce, they can do in a week what we'll do collectively, the West, the United States and Europe, in a month. That is kind of startling. Um, Now, where was I going with all of that? Yes. So, should we withdraw from NATO? It would be very risky to do it immediately, but inevitably we should. Inevitably, we are going to need to focus on our own interests. What's going on, as you said, we're removed by an ocean. It doesn't make sense to be in that sphere, and it makes an enemy we don't need to have. The Russians wouldn't be this belligerent toward us if if we were not expanding our influence there, if we weren't putting our missile systems right on their border. Like, think about how we flipped out when the Cuban Missile Crisis happened. Russia has that like 10 times over, 100 times over. Like, of course they're going to be defensive and paranoid of us. And this is the big thing too. People thought, and of course, me sort of calling this on my channel beforehand, but people said, oh, even if Trump wins, there's no way that Putin is going to negotiate. He has been lied to by Americans for so long. Here's the thing. Putin has been lied to by the American neoliberal, neoconservative establishment. That is what he's familiar with. Trump is an outsider. He does not represent that. He's not trying to perpetuate that. So yes, I was saying, like, before Trump's election, if Trump wins, he's got a better chance of negotiating peace with Putin than anybody else does. He's probably the only person who could do that.
Right. I think when it comes to, Russia, if we left NATO and Russia potentially invaded other states, we really are in the fog of war right now in terms of the capability of the Russian military. It's really hard to gauge on exactly what they would do in terms of that. But I can understand the answer considering right now it's unstable. We're trying to promote stability within Europe, and
I would dare say what we're doing is sort of mimicking the Russian slow and steady strategy. We don't want to pull out of NATO immediately. Yeah, I guess it would be economically beneficial for us. And we can assume that the Russians are weaker. But do we want to take that risk? Or do we want to go slow and steady and guarantee that things are secure?
right, right. Um, and we'll have to see what happens in terms of this war. It does seem like Putin has been dragging his proverbial feet in terms of this ceasefire, and Trump's getting a little bit angry about it. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure something very likely will get worked out based on how exhausted the war has become. But it might take a little bit longer. We got a donation: Trump 2028, Russia, Putin 2030. All right, man. Thanks. That dude always donates. But I wanted to talk about Greenland because Trump has said, he's made the jokes about annexing Canada, and I talk about Alberta and some of these provinces, but it's probably not realistic with Canada. They have a lot of Canadians have pride being their own country and being a Canadian. We can understand that. But Greenland with
It's
57,000
not even
people.
ideal if not to interrupt you, but it's not even ideal to annex any part of Canada because even the Albertans, relatively speaking, they're only about as conservative as like Minnesotans are, which is like another Democrat state. If you wanted to be like a practical Republican about it, annexing any part of Canada would probably get just a lot more Democrat voters or neocons at best.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue Alberta would potentially be a little bit more conservative. But to me, with Canada, from what I've learned, is they are a lot of liberal, but they kind of like are go with the wind, and I could see Alberta possibly go. They're certainly not far right wing or anything like that in terms of American standards. It's very liberal in Canada, but I think they potentially could be. And I've told people I think Eastern Canada, it's very very dark blue. It's not worth it, and that's why I think Trump was kind of trolling with that. But in terms of Greenland, what do you think about the United States having a presence there? Now there's this new story that's come out about China possibly getting in bed with Greenland, just what Trump warned. So I mean, it's a diplomatic thing. Do you do a military exercise? Do you try and basically buy them off in terms of their citizens? And it seems like we've alienated them. Unfortunately, JD Vance went there. It went very badly. That he couldn't make a public appearance because of how much. I mean, they are a proxy EU state because of the Denmark control. So, how do you want Greenland? How do we take it?
Well, practically speaking, Greenland is sort of an essential. If we want to do, if we do want to further our security and our interests here on the North American continent, and you had some left wingers who were saying, well, you want to pull out of Europe, but you want to double down and become imperialist by annexing Greenland. The difference is Greenland is a part of North America. Greenland is a part of the Arctic Shield, and it's, relatively speaking, not too far from Alaska. So yes, that does concern us quite a bit. Europe, that's its own continent. They have their own interests. Further than that, it has a population of only, what is it, 56,000 people. That is kind of minuscule. Um, when it comes to how do we acquire Greenland, there's multiple pathways to do that. Yes, you could theoretically buy them off, and it wouldn't be too expensive either. You could theoretically, what's the joke? Give each of them like $1 million, and that works out. That's doable. $56 million. That's not a lot of money to buy a new country, or buy a new state, I should say. You could also invade. Like, genuinely, you could invade. Is Greenland gonna put up a fight against the United States? No. Is Denmark gonna put up a fight against the United States? No. Is the collective European Union coming to Denmark's defense going to stop the United States? It cannot. Look, they can't. And I think this would actually be a smart negotiation point for between Trump and Russia. No, it's concede some of this land in Ukraine to Russia, and the Russians are basically like, yep, we'll back your annexation of Greenland. Like, if the Europeans try anything, we'll put pressure on them. And it's like, hey, that is genuinely, look, you have the Europeans between a rock and a hard place. They can't really do anything about it. Now that would just, that would antagonize the Europeans more. But we've already sort of done that. We've already sort of shown that, look, we're looking out for ourselves here. Europe, we have helped you for decades. We helped you get back on your feet. We protected you from being annexed by the Soviets. So we'd appreciate some gratitude for that. But you can't expect to keep living off of us. You have grown up. It's time for you guys to move out and face life on your own. So yeah, and so far as how to acquire Denmark, there's multiple ways of doing it. If it's not going to happen through democratic process, through referendum, then yeah, you're going to need more underhanded means. But it's kind of inevitable that it does happen. One compromise you could have is Greenland joining the United States not as a state, and this does make sense, but as an autonomous territory. But then, somewhere along the line, some years after, encouraging more and more Americans to settle Greenland. Given it only has a population of about 56,000, you could outnumber them pretty quickly and then have those Americans petition for statehood. Because let's be real, if you have a lot of Americans, whether they're right wing or left wing, if they're occupying this territory, they're going to want representation. They're going to want more representation in Congress. Um, so that's absolutely doable. And that would also be more palatable to them because it's like, look, we're not going to meddle in your affairs. You can have your local language, your local customs, your local whatever. And, we'll have very little influence over what you do. But if we want to establish military bases, if we want to extract some resources, we have a right to do that. I think they could, they'd find their way to, uh, what's the word? They'd find their way to accepting that more than just outright statehood, which again, statehood would not be favorable if they only have a population of 50,000, because then they'd get 2 senators, they'd get 1 representative in Congress, and they'd be the most underpopulated state in the Union. Nevertheless, the Greenlanders would be far better under our care than Denmark. What I always bring up is in Greenland, if you were to, and people bring this up for other areas, but Greenland specifically, under Denmark, has the highest suicide rate of any country or territory in the world per capita. Now, people say, oh, it's because it's freezing up there. I'm sure Alaska has a similar metric or Canada has a similar metric. No, no, no. Greenland's rate is about 5 times higher than Alaska's and like 10 times higher than Canada's. Obviously, whatever Denmark is doing for that country, it is not working out, and the people don't really have hope of a bright future. If we were to take over, the investment that we could bring, the jobs that we could bring, the opportunity, it would change their lives. They would be living far better than what they're living right now. So yeah, I do think it is ultimately in Greenland's interest to join us. It's in our interest as well, because I've spoken about this at nauseum. I'm sure you have as well. With the ice caps melting, more resources becoming accessible, Greenland believed to have access to a lot of rare earth minerals. Yeah, we're going to want to be able to take advantage of that. On top of that is sort of expanding our Arctic shield. And insofar as acquiring territory from Canada, I think acquiring many of the islands that lead up to the Northwest Passage would also be in our interest, because then we could control trade, not just from Panama, but trade coming through the north of the continent through the Northwest Passage. Nobody would be able to trade through North America without our say so. That would be a huge power move. And it'd also bring a lot more investment and wealth to the country. But yeah, Greenland would help us further that. There's also the matter of security. Now, of course, people say, well, Dean, you believe that the United States and Russia are more likely to be on friendly terms in the future. That's true. Nevertheless, you should still have defenses against any country. And this is sort of the situation we might argue for Canada, because we have a demilitarized border with them. And what's sort of the result been? Like all the drug smuggling that happens through Canada's border. People talk about Mexico's border, but a lot happens through Canada's border as well. And we have to be able to take care of that. Like that's not something we can just let slide. Knowing that you have allies and you can trust a country is nice and all, but you always have to have that measure of security. Like if not even Russia. Let's say Russia's out of the equation. You still have like the Scandinavian countries. You have Britain, who is a nuclear power, who could launch, let's say in a worst case scenario where they just absolutely hate us or we end up at war, launch ICBMs at us. Well, we can intercept them a lot more easily if we have that Arctic shield. If China tries to launch anything at us, yeah, we'll be better defended. If Russia tries to attack us for any reason, let's say, I don't know, something disastrous happens, or maybe it's a misfire. They think that we're launching missiles at them. We can intercept them. Controlling Greenland and furthering our footprint in the Arctic, it's just common sense.
Well, no, I agree 100%. And, I've harped on Greenland a lot on my channel. And when you look at the Arctic Circle, I mean, we really only have presence in terms of landmass in Alaska. But you talked about Greenland possibly being a state. I think if they applied for statehood, they would get rejected because the population is too small. And you're right in terms of we're probably going to see an Alaska 2.0 where people move up to Greenland based on the climate. You're probably going to get more conservative people up in Greenland. That's why the population, to where they're liberal and they're like EU-ified, if you will, in terms of they're all very leftist. It's probably not going to matter if we are able to bring up some conservatives onto the island. It's probably going to be maybe a light red state, honestly. So I think absolutely they become a territory. They cannot become a state. There's just too little people, and there's no way they can support a governor and 2 senators with that little of a population. It wouldn't be fair. And then you also mentioned possibly taking areas in these islands like Nunavut, Canada, and maybe some of the other like Northwest Territories for the Northwest Passage and how important that is. So that could be something that Trump might also look at. You've got the Davis Strait, you've got Baffin Bay, and you've got the passage. It's all very important in terms of these waterways. And then maybe also access to Hudson Bay as well. So, no, I agree with you 100% in terms of Greenland.
Yeah, theoretically, we might not even need to take any territory in Nunavut. Maybe a little bit of it, but we could theoretically just occupy many of these unpopulated islands and just be like, hey, yeah, we're not taking any Canadian territory with people in it, but we're taking control of these islands, which are strategically valuable and important to us. And aside from the Northwest Passage, we just have the entire Arctic Shield of North America then under our control.
Right, right, right. Well, I mean, obviously they would not be too happy about that. But I mean, what is Canada really going to do? They don't have any type of military. This is the problem with Canada and our relationship. It's just completely inorganic. I think that's why Trump wants to renegotiate that trade deal that they negotiated in 2020. It's because we have to protect Canada. I mean, that's just the reality based on how
Mhm.
small their military is. If anything happens to Canada, it's happening to us. It's because they're within North America
Right.
and they're so close to us. But
And we have a demilitarized border.
right, and so you also mentioned how much you love to talk about state border changes and things like that. And, I've talked about Greater Idaho. I've talked about some of these movements where there's conservative territory and lots of it just because of the way the lifestyle is. And there's counties and counties of conservative areas in eastern Washington and eastern Oregon. And what do you think about the idea of some of these things potentially going through, specifically Greater Idaho? Because that's the one that really has momentum. I don't know if there's going to be any new states like Lincoln County or Jefferson or Empire State within New York. But what do you think about what's your opinion on these borders and will we see a border change within the next, let's just say, few decades?
Speaking with Matt McCaw, who's in charge of the Greater Idaho movement a little while ago, and he says that they've gone about as far as they can at the local level, and so much of this is going to come down to getting more exposure for the movement, as well as the Trump administration or just the federal government in general stepping in and making this a matter that people talk about. I've been a big advocate for redrawing state borders. I call it Utahism, because state secession, when you talk about state secession, that's like a state leaving the union. When you talk about federalism, that has a different connotation these days. When I talk about Utahism, I think about how Utah was formed. Mormons basically created a state that was going to represent them, their identity, their culture, their way of life, and it remains that way to this day. I think every American people deserve a Utah of their own, deserve that type of homeland that actually represents their political interests. Uh, Greater Idaho is a huge stride in that direction, but they've been held up a lot by the Democratic population or the Democratic government in Oregon, and they're just sort of deadlocked. They've worked toward compromises where it's like, look, we'll lay it out plain for you. This part of Oregon is a drain on your economy because you have all of these progressive programs that work well for the coastal populations, but they're not really getting to any use out here in the east of Oregon. Nevertheless, it's still draining your economy, and we're not seeing any of the benefit of it. You'd be better off in Idaho, where they have policy that's compatible with us. They have a lifestyle that's compatible with us. Their environment is compatible with ours. You'd be better off in this situation. And still, they're very resistant to it. I'm a big believer that there's multiple pathways to victory. Just because this didn't work out at the local level for Oregon and Idaho doesn't mean it won't work out for Illinois and Indiana, which have also started picking up steam for their proposed land transfer. You can also have a similar situation in New York. One thing I say would be ideal if we can't actually change state borders is to decentralize governance in states like New York or Pennsylvania, where New York is basically like four or five different states having one governor and one assembly that determines how policy across the state. And we're especially screwed over because we have a situation where the various counties don't have representation in the state assembly, or I should say, they don't have a distinct representation from population based representative. So ultimately, what you end up having is New York State, all of it dominated by the big population centers, namely New York City and like around Albany. Then the more rural parts of the state sort of get screwed over. Some of the more suburban parts of the state get screwed over. If you had a situation where New York City had its own governor or sub-governor and sub-assembly, and then you had something like that for Long Island, something like that for the Hudson Valley, something like that for the Adirondack, and then something similar to that for Western New York, you could have better governance that represents those populations They wouldn't feel as though the state isn't moving in the direction that they and isn't moving in the direction that they oppose. And on top of that, actually get policy that makes their lives better. I've been all over the state, and there's so many issues that just sort of get taken for granted. I remember I was traveling around central New York, and I was hearing stories about how they were finally getting rid of a lot of the old lead piping and replacing it with new stuff. And the system had been just neglected for so long that they had a this was a repair they had done like just a couple apparently a repair they did a couple decades prior. There was a hollowed out tree trunk that they used for a section of piping. Like, how's what is that? How bad the situation is? I remember driving through another part out west, and there was like an old factory that was like collapsing and falling into the local river. Yeah, the state has some serious problems that need more local attention. So, yeah, insofar as redrawing state borders or providing more representation to the various populations that live inside of these states, it's kind of essential. It's look, ultimately we are a federation. What's a federation supposed to do? It's supposed to give a degree of local autonomy and federal representation to various populations. We are in this mindset that that representation stops at the states. The states are meant to represent people. It's not a matter of, hey, whoever's in the state at this given time, yeah, you can all sort of vote together. It's arbitrary. You're just clumping a bunch of random people together and saying, okay, you guys make up whatever policy works for you. Yeah, you've got a little bit of industry up here. You guys, you got a thriving port down there. So you guys are going to favor free trade. You guys are going to favor protectionism. That's not going to work out too well, but settle that among yourselves. Oh, you've got a resource-based economy as well as I don't know, let's say like an industrial economy. Actually, no, those two would complement each other. But my point is, when you have these levels of division and there's a lack of focus on what a state's priorities are, you end up with policy that doesn't satisfy anybody. You ultimately need states that are representative of people, interests, those types of things. It's not just, yeah, this state, which is literally a square, and everybody who lives in there, you're going to decide your policy and things will be just fine. That's not how a federation system is supposed to work.
Yeah, and I think, just calling for optimization within some of these states and just how drastic the population centers are. I mean, Washington State and Oregon State are great examples on the coastline versus virtually the entire other area of the state. New York City versus New York State is another great example. Chicago versus Illinois. Very different in terms of the way the people live within the states, depending on where they are located, whether they're in a big city or in a rural area. But it's certainly unique when it comes to the conservative Republican perspective because, you get a few of these redrawn. You're looking at a potential better situation for Republicans when it comes to electoral votes and when it comes to representation just in general. So it'll be something interesting to follow depending on if it happens. I think the issue is I don't know about for Idaho what happened there, but Oregon would have to agree to that. Why would Oregon agree to lose territory? Why would Oregon agree to lose resource and population? It seems like it would have to be nudged from someone like Trump or someone more powerful within the government to potentially make something like that happen. I don't know. I know both of the state legislators have to agree for that land transfer to happen. But it's something
Well, as
interesting.
I said, what Matt had brought up was that Oregon, with their progressive policies, they're giving all these benefits to Eastern Oregon that they really don't want. They would rather have they would rather have the freedom and autonomy to develop policy of their own. And they say, look, we've crunched the numbers. We are a drain on your economy. You'd be better off just taking this money and investing in policy that you care about. And politically, they're holding them back because Eastern Oregon is more conservative. They're going to want to push for conservative policy. Because Western Oregon is progressive, they're going to push for that. When you have this difficulty where the western side wants to go one way and the eastern side doesn't want to go that way, it stalls policy. So the argument is, look, if we leave, you can put forward whatever policy you want. You're not going to have any resistance from us. and still the coastal area says nope, you're not leaving.
Right. I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, with Oregon, a lot of their politics at the state level is going to be decided that extremely progressive, and so that's definitely one of the states to where there's the extreme difference, and we'll have to see if anything gets moving in terms of maybe a nudge from the Oregon state government from the higher ups, meaning the Trump and someone within, at a national level to push them for, or maybe, what, it could be a thing to where it's a bargaining chip and they do get more of what they want by trying to push to leave. At least a lot of those counties push to leave. Maybe Oregon, the state government says, all right, we'll give you X, Y, and Z so you don't continue on with this. So, we'll have to see what happens in terms of that. But, I know you said you had an hour and things like that. I do want to ask you quickly, when it comes to your channel, it seems like you do, like, your strategy is, what is it, one video a week, one video every 2 weeks, like a really put together video? Is that what you do?
Yeah, I usually upload once a week. Recently, I've been taking a little bit more time off to work on. Well, I don't want to say what I've been working on, but I've been working on a couple little projects that are going to be coming out later in the year. Yeah, usually I'll upload once a week. I'll alternate politics, history. It's a good combination of both, and they often lean into each other. Where if you know more about the history, it gives you some good insight on where the politics are. That's one of the things I'll bring up one more time, sort of circling all the way back to the economic argument we had. Again, a lot of the experts, they don't have the hindsight of where we've been. They're only thinking about where we are right now, and they don't think about the implications in terms of the how this could work, how it has worked, and what direction we might be moving in. They can't shake themselves out of that status quo. But having that good historic perspective helps a lot with a lot of that.
Yeah, I saw you did a video on Israel.
Yes, so I'm very much of the persuasion that inevitably the relationship between the United States and Israel is just going to break apart. It's not a sustainable alliance, much like the EU. It was a practical thing during the Cold War, but now Israel has gotten to the point of being more of a hindrance to the United States than an asset. And even if you do have a large segment of the population which does feel a strong kinship toward Israel, which is, primarily a lot of the dispensationalist evangelical Protestants, because of course it holds a very important role in their perspective of religion. That is an older segment of the population. It is shrinking as well. A lot of the younger evangelicals don't subscribe to that worldview, and increasingly you're having both a social drift and a practical shift, where it's both the youth of the country is becoming increasingly anti-Israel, for any number of reasons. It's there's all sorts of reasons both on the left and the right. But then there's also the practical geopolitics aspect of it, which is we don't really have anything tying us to that area. This is another area that has dragged us into a lot of wars. We've spent a lot of money, propping Israel up as a country. It doesn't make sense for us to keep wasting money here if we're going to do that, if we're moving more toward this America first policy.
Right. Well, it's revealing to see kind of Trump's policy when it comes to these foreign countries, and it's almost like the meme, everyone but Israel, like when he stopped even the foreign aid to Ukraine, but he kept it flowing to Israel and also Egypt. But yeah, it just seems like there's such a break, and you could say October 7th caused it, maybe it just accelerated it. But in terms of us remaining in the Middle East, the amount of alienation that happens from us being there with the Arab countries, is it worth it in defense of Israel? A lot of this, we know it's based on biblical principle in terms of, well, we have to defend Israel because of the historical context of it within the Bible. Then people say, well, no, the modern state in 1948 doesn't have anything to do with the one that was being discussed in holy books. So, I mean, I think in general, it's like with Israel, you really can't escape it on the internet. It's everywhere, especially with young people. There's obviously some people take it extremely far when it comes to the amount of control that Israel has within the United States. You can look at APAC, you can look at the lobbying, you can look at the amount of support that Trump has for Israel. But I mean, it's just, you really can't escape what's been going on in terms of the situation and kind of the public, the younger public's loss of and it's funny because like all the young people want the United States to get out of the relationship with Israel that we currently have, but all of the establishment right still 1000% supports Israel. I mean, you just saw a local race that happened. I think Randy Fine, who's just like obsessed with Israel support. It's just interesting to see the difference, even with Trump and this newer age right wing who wants us to leave Israel and get out of there ASAP. It's kind of interesting. And to be honest, like the whole Palestine Israel situation, it's like a no-win situation for Trump no matter what you do. I mean, you want to have a two-state solution. There'll probably be a war in 3 years. You want to get send the Palestinians somewhere. They call it an ethnic cleansing. So I mean, I know you have to go, but quickly, what do you think is the end to this? Do you think Palestine will like cease to exist? Do you think there's going to be some type of economic zone within the Gaza Strip?
Insofar as an American economic zone or like an international economic zone?
I would imagine it would be international, and Trump was just saying American as a negotiation.
Yeah, so insofar as what ends up happening in the Middle East, I think it's very much what I had brought up with the situation insofar as Russia and NATO. You don't want to just immediately pull out of there and have a chaotic situation that people are going to blame you for. You want to stabilize. Of course, Trump's legacy factors into this, global stability factors into this, and our foreign relations factor into this. What I'm inclined to think Trump is doing now is he wants to just sort of end the game. He wants to end the game in a very one-sided way where it's like, look, Israel has won the war. Whatever settlement happens from this, that's the end of it. That's what I'd assume is going on. Easily it could be a matter of Trump also buying into the strong support for Israel, which I doubt, because there was, of course, the incident after 2020 when he called Netanyahu a traitor and a snake, and I'm inclined to think he's not particularly fond of Netanyahu. And of course, it was recently when him and Netanyahu were sitting down to discuss tariffs, and he said, what was it along the lines of, we might keep our tariffs a little higher, because we do give you a lot of money already. So what would be, what's sort of the point of dropping the tariffs? There is a little bit of that assertion that, the US isn't going to just give them carte blanche anymore. But insofar as how this conflict is going to end, the Palestinians are probably going to get screwed over pretty bad. But now you're at least going to have the participation of a lot of these Middle Eastern countries, Egypt and Jordan, taking a more activist role in providing some type of security for them. There'll probably be a joint occupation zone of Gaza. Any number of things could happen because, of course, let's not mince words. Israel does have ambitions for that territory. Israel would very much like to expand its reach there. But with Trump intervening and saying that they're going to restore this area and turn it into something completely new, that suggests to me that he has a vision for that area that Israel doesn't have full swing over. It's like, look, what this is going to be isn't going to be like Israel occupying the Golan Heights or Israel having control over Jerusalem. This is going to be a situation, it's going to be a compromise. It's not going to be necessarily a Palestinian state, but it'll be somewhere where they can live and have some security.
Yeah. So we'll have to see it in terms of that. And I would imagine there's probably going to be a lot of Arab investment. I think they said like 53 billion that they wanted to invest into it. And Trump is not stupid. He knows that when it comes to MAGA, when it comes to this America First stuff that he's been pushing, Middle Eastern policy needs to at least be brought to the back burner in terms of the aggressiveness that we take. And we've also got the situation with the Iran negotiations, which is its own thing because Trump ripped up the original agreement. But you have a lot of people saying, well, Israel really wants to weaken Iran. And if Trump can get a nuclear deal with Iran, that could really, I would say, help his administration when it comes to Middle Eastern policy to avoid a situation where we are, maybe joint bombing the Iranian nuclear plants, which is presumably what people are saying Israel wants to do. So, maybe that's the next step in terms of if we're able to work out some type of nuclear deal. I know there was there was recently some news. I don't know if it's true, but it was like Rubio and Michael Waltz wanted to do a joint bombing of nuclear plants or areas in which the Iran might be producing a nuclear weapon, and apparently Vance and Hegseth were against it. So I don't know if there's some differing within the administration. Obviously, it seems like Rubio is a lot more pro-Israel and maybe a little bit more neocon in that sense, and so is Waltz. But we'll have to see. But either way, man, I don't want to keep you on too long. I appreciate you for doing this, and you can shout out your stuff if you want. And do you do live streams? You do like one live stream a week, I think.
I do, yes. So I have the Zcast live stream every weekend, and we might have you on there too. You know, the invitation's open if you'd like to join us. Yeah, you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Monsieur Z, or Monsieur Z if you'd like to write it that way. US of Z over on X. US of Z is also another YouTube channel where my buddy Jacob makes alternate history. My Instagram is Dean of New York. You can check me out there. And if you're interested in the whole redrawing borders thing, check out utahism.com. A lot of good stuff there. It's like Utah the state and then ism.com. One more thing I'll say right before I go. So insofar as Iran, one possible thing that could manifest, and I sort of brought this up with Russia and Greenland, you could have some type of compromise arrangement because Russia is right there on their border where, well, maybe, yeah, I mean, they're close enough, I should say. The Russians could move in more surgically and handle this. That way it doesn't become an American matter. That way it's not America that has its hands dirty from, taking out Iranian nuclear sites, but it's Russia being like, hey, look, this is our sphere. We don't want another nuclear power right here that's going to be causing trouble. And we worked out a negotiation with the United States for this. That's certainly a possibility as well.
Right. Yeah, and maybe there's a number of things because I was thinking about possibly involving Russia. You know, Putin did make a mention of Greenland, saying that he basically said that, well, the United States, they may take it. He didn't really disavow the thought of it. So maybe there could be a unilateral deal, possibly with Russia supporting us taking Greenland, depending on the ceasefire and the peace deal that happens there. But I appreciate you for coming on.
You have the NATO. Well, it was the NATO president or the NATO minister who also didn't disavow it. He says, "Look, if America is going to take Greenland, I don't think that's really our place to interfere." So I think it also speaks to how isolated Denmark and Greenland kind of are in that situation.
Right, right. But man, listen, I appreciate you for coming on. So you've been on YouTube for 6-7 years. You've been on a very, a good amount of time, and I wish you luck in terms of your politics. I think we're definitely both more so on the right in terms of politics. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. Take care.
All right, man, I'll see you. Well, guys, that was a little interview with Mr. Z. A little Discord chat there, talking about some geopolitical things and some interesting stuff. He's a historian, so he gave us a little history on the situations, the wars going on right now, the two major ones, along with the tariff situation. But yeah, it's good to have him on, and I mean, I probably will go a full 2 hours in this live stream and discuss some other things. Well, he said he had to leave after an hour. That's why I wasn't pushing him out, but he said he had to do something. Like the stream, yeah, guys, I like the stream. You liked it. I appreciate it. I know people are like, well, you need to talk more. Well, you have the guest on. You have to be nice. You have to allow the guest to talk. And I mean, he's a historian, so he's gonna explain things. 245% tariffs. Well, the 245% tariffs are on extreme select goods, most of it. But how about Powell? What a pompous, arrogant piece of shit. Powell is arguing the dumbest liberal talking points. The absolute dumbest. Oh, it might be inflationary. And it's like, this is absurd. This is why Trump has to force the rate cuts down through this economic turmoil. Every Trump would-be assassin has ties to Ukraine. Does Crooks have ties to Ukraine? I don't know about Crooks. Have you watched the videos from a YouTube channel called Canadian Pepper? He has some interesting videos regarding self-reliance and geopolitics. No, I haven't. I'll have to look it up, man. The whale enters. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. But how about this Democratic primary too? Oh, this is with Harris. Just they got Buttigieg right now in second place. They got no leader. The Democrats do. Jon Stewart down there. Stephen A. Smith less than 0.5%. Pritzker. Should have a guest on once a month. Yeah, I'm trying to have more guests on, man. Trying to branch out a little bit, I guess, man, you know. Yeah, they're also, I saw this prediction. Vance's ceiling, 359 electoral votes. It includes basically every potential swing state, including New Jersey. I mean, I don't think Vance is going to get 359, obviously. Take a look at new campaign trail. Yeah, it's like a simulator game. I've seen YouTube videos on that. Dems could run Cuban. Yeah, if they're obsessed with finding their own variant of Trump, it would be Cuban. 100%. Would not be Pritzker. Because Pritzker, you know, is already involved in politics. And Pritzker, I mean, just with his... We wouldn't want Pritzker if you're Democrats. Harris, Buttigieg, 2028 ticket. Yeah, they're not going to pick Harris. And I don't think Buttigieg is going to be involved either. Buttigieg has, like, a few things that are really negative about him in terms of his electability. He's got this snide kind of almost like sarcastic, like I'm better than you type talking style. And he's like really short and stuff. I just can't see Buttigieg being picked. And also you've got Buttigieg, the whole, you know, buying kids and stuff. Like people, that's like mainstream now. People are like, I mean, SNL did a video, like segment making fun of that. Your next guest should be Joe Rogan. Yeah, he would definitely join. I don't even think Rogan barely even goes on anyone's podcast. I don't even know the last time I've seen Rogan on someone else's podcast. It's probably been years. Shapiro, I can't see it being Shapiro. I mean, he's going to be in there. He'll be. I think it's a waste of money when he runs, but it's like to me, Shapiro and Newsom are similar. I don't think either one of them have much to them. I mean, it's going to have to be somebody though. You never got my donation and it charged me anyway. You know what? I might be able to find your donation. Were you talking about the donation that happened? Oh no, I read off of the donations today. Oh, Canada historically defers to authority. Yeah, I mean that was another thing when he was when he was saying that, you know, Alberta would be like Minnesota. I think Alberta's more conservative than that. But I do agree with you in terms of Canada, you know, they're not completely this crazed liberal, like all the provinces are not crazed liberal. You could get some of the provinces depending on the conservative that runs. But your donation, the one donation was I didn't get it. Or I mean I might not have gotten it. Any female astronauts meme today? Yeah, they're all talking about it. That female stuff is just people are saying it's not real. I mean, it's a joke either way. It's like the Purge if you look at those ladies. Did you see the photo of those ladies? I mean, it's crazy. I'm gonna be able to find my accounts. Look at that, dude. This is the Purge, man. My goodness. It's all the same, too. It's the exact same. It's the Purge masks on all of them. Letitia James under investigation. Oh, there's a shocker. Huh. Like, that's someone that tried to get Trump in prison. Huh. Amazing. That's someone that we can rely on to trust the law. You did a phone call with Radio Politics. Next thing you should do is bring him on for a live stream. Yeah, I'll message him at some. I'll message him. I did do a phone call with him. Oh man, that was a good phone call. They do all look the same, yeah. Get Brett Baer on. That would be boring. Buttigieg was a failure in Biden's cabinet. He also has no substance when he speaks. He won't make it far. Could be good for GOP if he does make it far, however. Yeah, I don't think Buttigieg is going anywhere. And wasn't he like the transportation and there's a whole thing in East Palestine? Remember that? I don't know. It's just like a flub with him. And he just comes off like a limp fish, Buttigieg does. Yeah, this dude is trying to fight for an MS-13 member's rights. He took a plane to El Salvador to go rescue a gang member. It's amazing. Where the Democratic Party is. Will you be doing college football videos this fall? I don't know, man. I haven't really decided on it. It's a while till then, anyways. But I'm not too sure, honestly. I'm iffy on doing it. If I want to continue the college football stuff. I mean, I don't know, man. Any potential for Dogecoin? I mean, I think Doge will still do well if we have an actual bull run. You gonna make an NBA playoff bracket? You've been hot with sports predictions. You know, I don't really. I'm not a fan of how the NBA does their playoffs with the play-in now. It's annoying. I got your donation. Good show. I appreciate it. So I got that donation. I don't know if you sent me another donation. I didn't get it, but maybe it didn't go through. I would be surprised if it glitched to where you sent the money and I wasn't able to see it. The great state of Jefferson will be free. Yeah, Jefferson, man. Oh, wrong thing. Jefferson. Imagine. Five electoral votes. What do you think China? What do you think of the China negotiating offer? Did they just come out with an offer? Because I haven't seen it. If did they come out with like a public negotiating offer? Or do you want me to just speculate on what it could be? Dude, the thing is this thing is so messed up. Like I don't know why my desktop X is so effed up. The For You page is effed up. The search function is effed up. Like it goes back 2-3 days on some of this stuff. It's like they refunded you. All right, well that's kind of what I thought would have happened. You like NBA playoff 7-game series whole way? Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I like 7-game series. You should 5 games, 3 games is weak, especially for MLB. You're right, but MLB, I guess, I don't know, maybe pitcher injuries they don't want, but You think MLB would use 7 games? Because MLB is so sporadic in terms of from game to game. You know, you want as many games as possible to determine the best team in MLB because anyone can win a game just based on how MLB is. Cuban is going to run as a Democrat. The left will hate him. He'll definitely have like a certain loyalist support, but I don't know if it's going to be more than 5%. So maybe you're right. I mean, he'll definitely buy support too with the amount of money he has. I mean, he can just invest his own money. He's doing the coy thing where he's like, I don't want to run because my family and all this shit. But it's like, why are you already involved in politics then? Why were you campaigning for Kamala? Kings or Mavericks? I don't know. I'd say, wait, the Mavericks? There's no way the Mavericks are in the play-in. How the hell did the Mavericks make the play-in? Carney lost the French debate. English debate will be the main one, though, as the French debate is only for Quebec. I know nobody speaks French in Canada, anyways. Isn't it like 98? I don't know if it's 98, but it's a lot of it's English speaking. I don't know why they'd have a French debate, unless maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's more, but people say Carney lost it. I mean, I'm not gonna watch a French debate. US ChatGPT to predict Vance versus Newsom. It had Vance at 451, Newsom at 87. I mean, that's not realistic. That's not a good prediction, man. Come on, that's not realistic. I mean, if it said like 325 or 359, I'd say that's, even though it's bullish, it's more realistic. We're like, what even is any of this stuff? China trolls art of the deal. But he's taking out just cards. I don't see how that's that big of a troll. And I have so many of these things open. Is the Epstein coin dead? Well, it's dead until there's news on Epstein, dude. There's just no news. I mean, if they're not going to push for news and the updated release or of phase 2 or whatever the hell they want to call it. See, they did file a lawsuit against it. Somebody was telling me that in the chat. They were going to file a lawsuit against Pam Bondi. I mean, but maybe this will get the ball rolling in terms of dialogue, hopefully. That's what I would hope. How long do you predict until Andy Reid retires? Probably like a year or two. I don't think he's got much longer. Well, I think the Chiefs are kind of, they never should have made the Super Bowl anyways. Even winning the Super Bowl last year, they were not a dominant team at all. This is 2 straight years the Chiefs really have not been dominant. They won the Super Bowl, then they got blown out. I think they're kind of coming to their, Mahomes hasn't been as good recently either. So I think Reid will probably, you know, also Kelsey's very old. Disappointed in 4chan coins. Muted move over 4chan got hacked. Dude, I know. Honestly, the weird thing with crypto though, that can happen and then it randomly will shoot up, you know, a 10x, 12x. Which one are you? Are you in the Ethereum? The Ethereum one is the main one. I'm in the Ethereum one. I know there's a Solana one that went up higher or did like a better X number. It did like a 7x or an 8x. The Solana one I saw. The Ethereum one only went up like 40% or something. Which obviously, after it dropping as much as it did, you would think it would go higher. Did you see Trump wave off Israeli strike on Iran? Great movies being. Is that serious? Is that I did not see that. That's really good news if that's true. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. This is good news. This is really good news. Yeah. This is what we wanted, man. This just came out an hour ago, New York Times. No, Andy Reid will try for Shula's win record. Yeah, I mean, I guess if he's close, you're probably right. I don't know how close he is, but Breaking news by New York Times. Yeah, I just saw it. This is what we wanted. This is what I said would happen too. And Israel was planning to strike Iran. And this doesn't mean a deal's going to be negotiated. Let's just hope it's moving in that direction. Trump has to know there can't be war in the Middle East under his administration after everything we've gone through with this dialogue and these useless wars and the Ukraine situation and giving them all the money. Not going to satisfy the alternate conservatives. Everything and anything is tied to Israel. I know, but they're just going to have to come up with a new cope on Trump being in bed with them and stuff. So with them, you're right, it's never enough. They're just going to go to move on. I mean, let's hope this isn't them. I mean, if Trump does agree to a deal, the context of this is amazing. Israel was going to strike them. Trump said no, and then Trump did a deal with Iran when Israel obviously didn't want it to happen. So this would be a really, really good thing for Trump, political maneuver. I think I should probably do the video on this tomorrow just because it's so important. But, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that for sure it's not going to happen, but this is a good step. Israel is ridiculous. They're a parasite. Well, obviously they're trying to weaken Iran through the help of, you know, the strong United States, and Trump is saying it just can't happen. I mean, it would just be a horrible look for his supposed no new wars mantra. Will you be doing any more 9/11 videos? You know what? I could get a Titanic video out probably by tomorrow, and I really need to get that video out. I got about 4 or 5 minutes recorded of it. So a Titanic video with the Federal Reserve is probably the next thing that's coming out. And then I mean, I really could go. The problem with 9/11 is just I can't monetize it. It's tough. Mark Cuban. I mean, you tell me to go to a Mark Cuban tweet. A lot of the times when you guys tell me to go to this stuff, it's like a retweet or some shit. The Donald Trump executive order on healthcare and, in particular, drug pricing could save hundreds of billions. So this is the tweet you were talking about? What is the total number? Put me in, coach. I'm here to help. Oh, now he's being a simp to Trump. That's great. I mean, Cuban has his own drug company, and he tries to get it for cheaper prices. I know that. A lot of people talking about Trump's approval rating, but it doesn't seem to even matter this early in his term. But it's also not bad. His approval rating is like -3, -4, which is perfectly fine enough, especially considering the economic turmoil we've had. So when the economy gets better, when some of these wars end, you know, you're looking at obviously an improved, hopefully, approval rating. But I mean, even right now, it's not like there's this Trump syndrome that we saw in the first term to where even if the economy is good, Trump's sitting at -8, -9 in terms of approval. That happened during Trump's first term. It's not happening now. You know, you have all this turmoil and he's still only at -4. There's a lot more loyalty to Trump, and there's a lot more people open-minded about what Trump wants to do as opposed to his first term. That's why I think you're going to see Trump with a positive approval rating in the future, later on in his term, which didn't happen in his first term. Yeah, I saw that. There's a war, according to reports, with Trump, Hegseth, Vance, Wickoff preferring diplomacy, while Rubio, Waltz want a stronger approach. I know. I wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the neocons want the war. They want to send a message, and it seems like they're not going to win out. That's good, man. Check the CME Fed rate watch after the Powell. Did it seriously change a lot? Because I saw it, and CME said that it wasn't going to happen. They said that the cut would happen in June. I think it's got a load. This is the May 7th, 83% chance. That's it staying the same. Current rate staying the same. June. Dude, if we don't get it in June, oh my. I mean, to be honest, that's playing politics. I mean, we'll see what the inflation is and stuff like that, but that is 100% playing top politics if we don't get it in June. Like lagging now, but it needs to happen in June. Do you prefer Trump's first term or Trump's second term? Which Trump mentality do you prefer better? Well, Trump is an upgraded version of his first term, 100%. And they'll say, well, now he's more controlled by Israel in his second term. But just in terms of Trump maneuvering his cabinet, it's 1,000 times better. The first term was, I mean, it was still infested with a bunch of neocons. It was still the Republican Party of, we had Romney, McCain. I mean, that's really what you were looking at. And then Trump wins in a shocker. I mean, Hillary was supposed to win, so it would have been 8 years of Obama and then Hillary. But it's just not even comparable. I mean, the proactiveness of this administration that Trump has, and obviously it's going to get easier for Trump. I mean, he had zero experience in public office, really. And then he goes right to being the president. And so there's an overwhelmingness, and there's probably a lot of deferment from Trump to other people within the administrations. And now Trump obviously is a lot more keen on the relationships in Washington and trying to get things done. And I mean, the executive order numbers, look at the executive order comparison in terms of the amount that he signed this term versus the first. The productivity is just times 10. And there's a lot more creative potential things that Trump has in the pipeline that never even came close to being happening in the first term. Why isn't Trump fired the head of the Fed, Powell? He can't technically do it. I think there's a process in terms of doing it. But yeah, people are talking about removing Powell. Why is Michael Waltz still in the administration? He is the one who gave the journalist the signal. Trump still can't pick good people. Well, that's one person, and Waltz obviously is more of a neocon, pro-Israel and pro-involvement in the Middle East. But I think the signal chat, listen, he probably should have been gone after the signal chat, but mainly because we someone like that we really don't like, whether you think that's a fireable offense or not. I mean, it was obviously Waltz's fault, and then he kind of backtracked and didn't take accountability for it, so that's another problem. But we'll have to see. I think he's on thin ice. He has to be on thin ice after that mess up. You feel bad for Matt Walsh. He's not well mentally. It's so obvious he's crying inside. Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I've always said Matt Walsh is a weird man. I think he's a weird dude. There's something about the way, I mean, he does have a lot of good takes that are pro what I would support, but it's not even about the takes. I don't know what it is. Thoughts on gold? Yeah, gold is definitely climbing. I mean, there's a tumultuous situation within the market. People are looking for stability. Even the bonds are not stable. Is the Canadian debate tomorrow? Yeah, the Canadian debate. Does anyone know if, like, when it comes to the streaming rules on the Canadian debate, because the thing is, I don't want to be hit with something again with this stuff. I mean, I guess I would watch it just because why not? How long is the Canadian debate? Does anyone know? Like an hour and a half. You can stream the debate tomorrow on CPAC. It's a Canadian version of C-SPAN. Yeah, but can I stream it in America? I mean, that seems to be like a country thing. I mean, can C-SPAN be streamed in other countries for free and stuff? The thing is I'll still get hit with copyright, but as long as it's not like a strike, I'm all right. Trump didn't fire him in order to wipe it from the media. No news on the topic is good news. Yeah, and also what it is it gives the media like this justification to continue pressing the administration, because it was very obvious the media wanted somebody gone, and they would have viewed it as like a victory and this horrible thing for Trump. So he said, screw you, we're not doing it. I mean, that plays into it as well, I think. Do you like free agency college football? Not really, man. Not a big fan of it, honestly. It's just out of control. How about that Nico Ilamile or whatever? Isn't he going to UCLA? What a joke that is. UCLA. Matt Walsh, like if YouTube shut down, most of these people would be irrelevant. Well, I mean, to be fair, I would be irrelevant, but I don't think Matt Walsh would be irrelevant. I mean, they have built up Daily Wire, and if you have like a big Twitter, the debate is 5 hours long. That's a joke. 2 hours. Yeah, I mean, what is it at 7 to 9? Does Rodgers retire? I think he's got. I mean, he's doing this whole thing. He's milking it like Brett Favre used to milk it. So maybe he'll come back. But where's he even going? The Steelers? I mean, it's like, I think there is a poly market on that. So we'll have to see. What do they have him for retirement right now? Oh, they got him on the Steelers. Steelers, Giants are down. It's really Steelers or retirement. I mean, the Vikings are going to go with McCarthy, the young quarterback. The Giants. Who did the Giants get? They got someone, but irrelevant who they got. But we'll see. Feinbaum was bitching about Tennessee QB leaving. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a joke, honestly. They need to roll out a college basketball video game. I know, but you know what? I think it would be cool, but the football version was terrible. I was really disappointed. There was so little to it. Like, it really is remarkable how much worse games have gotten in general. And I think a perfect example of that is this new college football game that came out. Like, there is no way you could argue in any term the college football 25 is better than the 2014 game. It's not even close. The 2014 game had way more detailed statistics, detailed things when it came to the franchise mode. It's like not even close. And now it's all about the micro purchases and things like that. And it's just crazy how much worse things get sometimes. And that's a good example. But I mean, I would like to see a March Madness like simulator thing like that. So college basketball game. Russell Wilson. Yeah, that's just, man. Dude, these teams can never find quarterbacks like legit. How are we Russell Wilson? And that team don't even have offensive talent to be able to do anything. Giants. I mean, they've got Neighbors, the young receiver, but it's like the Giants are in purgatory. They really are. You play fantasy? I used to play fantasy football. I played when I was way younger. I played fantasy baseball. I never really got into fantasy basketball, but I don't really play anything yet anymore. The game was fun when it first came out. It got dull, but there's just no. It's just a very skeleton type game. Like there's nothing to it. It's just bones. There's no meat to the game. There's very little involved in it. Yeah, dude, this is getting out of control. Carmelo Anthony selling merch now. Free Melo. He's already free. The judge brought his bail down. They let him out. They like, it's insane. It's not 2014, but 25 is the best football game in years. But it's the only college football game that's come out since the 2014 game. Compared to how low EA's work ethic is, college football 25 is pretty good considering the standards. Yeah, but look at their 2014 game. Browns going with Flacco. I mean, I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback either. They probably will try and maybe draft somebody in the second round, but you go with Flacco. You're looking at 5 wins, 4 wins. You're not going to win anything with that. I mean, I know Flacco had a decent. Who do you think we will start? When do you think we'll start seeing some of Trump's new trade deals? I don't know. Maybe in the next few weeks. Did you see Japan is now negotiating? They're cooperating and negotiating. Japan is. It came out today. The Martian or Interstellar? It's got to be Interstellar. I mean, The Martian's a really good movie, but it's not Interstellar. He must have a dynamite defense case, right? Yeah, it'll be interesting. Apparently, there's video from that. There's video, so That'll be released eventually. You can stream a Canadian political debate on YouTube without incurring a copyright strike as long as the content is used in a way that qualifies as fair use. So they're exempt. Yeah, I mean, it's probably like one of those gray area type things. So I don't know how many people would even be streaming the Canadian debate. I mean, definitely a lot of people in Canada, I'm sure, but it's like a niche thing in the United States. Movies have gotten shitty. Oh, I know. A lot has gotten shitty. It's not even nostalgia. I mean, it's there's no way you can tell me that movies have dude, there's this like horror movie. I think it's gonna be not it doesn't look that great, but there's like new horror movies coming out. They look just this one. We'll see. At this time, do you think the Republicans are going to hold their grip in the midterms? Well, they'll definitely hold the Senate. The House is another story. You know, there really is like betting odds. Where's the? I think there might like election betting odds, but not Polymarket because Polymarket doesn't really have anything. This might be it right here. Yeah, this is it. They give you all the stuff here. They got Newsom. I mean, but the Democrats, it's like it's so split with all these candidates. I mean, Buttigieg really is like second, third place right now. AOC's at 6.5%. I mean, it's just split between so many. Michelle Obama, seriously, it's not gonna happen. Warnock, Vance is the heavy favorite. There's Donald Trump, son, Youngkin. I'm surprised Youngkin is that high. Surprised Tucker Carlson isn't on here. I'm not saying he's gonna be the choice, but and then Vance is a 22%. But the key stuff here would be the control, House control. Yeah, so I mean, it is what it is right now. This is just based off of the current situation. There's so many district races, you can't necessarily say the amount of seats that parties are going to get, but this is just based off of Trump's approval and just right now the turmoil within the markets. And so, you know, if the election were today, it probably wouldn't, or the midterms were today, it wouldn't go great. But you know, this is something that can change really easy. I'm kind of surprised that it was even at. I think it's because just the way the midterms work. If you've got the Republicans in the Democrats are probably going to do well in the midterms. Senate control should be Republicans fairly easily. 70-30. I think it should be like 90-10, maybe 95-5. I don't think there's any way. I mean, worst case, it's like 51 seats from what I saw in terms of control. But this is kind of a weird site. It's like you can't even. Where do you go home? This is the homepage. Oh, this is. I guess this is the homepage then. Charts. 2024 president. How's Trump only at 98.4? What is he going to be impeached? Kamala Harris is going to go in. You have a theory Carmelo saw the bag he could get from this, and since there's no video, he could lie and say he was getting attacked. No, I don't think so, dude. I think there's way, like, I understand people want to be like, well, this kid, you know, they planned this to be able to get this money. It's all a grift. I don't think that's really. There's just no way, because you don't know what happens after you stab someone, if someone else has a knife or anything like that. It's just there's too many components. I think the kid just. I mean, you bring a knife to a situation like that. And then here's all the whataboutisms comparing it to Rittenhouse and all this other stuff. It's not even close to the same event. You're comparing different events. You're creating a false equivalency. So what's the point? If Trump gets 75% of what he wants, Republicans will do fine. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Trump is just there's so much stuff that's hopefully going to be happening. But we'll have to see. I mean, my mouth is really dry. You wonder when they'll release the videos? Probably when the trial happens. I don't know. many white. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about mixed race and stuff, and yeah, I mean, that's just it's down to me. It's a down ballot effect, if you want to say like mixed race, and it's down ballot of just feminism and just liberalism in general. I think that kind of gets rooted into it. Plaza Commander's new proposed stadium. Did they release a new one? Is it a new stadium or like I'd like to see new renderings? Maybe. Is there any new renderings? Oh, look at this video. This is a good video. People should watch it. No, but this is it's a nice looking stadium. I like it. It looks like an Olympic stadium almost. That's a nice thumbnail. They did a better thumbnail than me. Damn them. Damn you. No. It's a nice thumbnail. We have to praise it. Are the videos circulating online? I haven't seen any videos on that event. They're supporting Carmelo as revenge for George Floyd. Yeah, I mean, but they'll just anytime it's like this, they'll just support their own. I mean, no matter the situation, whether it's the black person getting killed or killing someone, they're just gonna support them no matter what. Was it in on school grounds? I think it was, but I don't know in terms of it being a track meet exactly. If there was school in session, I think there was. If it was in the morning or whatever. 200K raised for that Garcia. Yeah. Well, that doesn't really surprise me either. But I mean, what does it matter? He's not coming back. He can't. El Salvador's not allowing. Bukele won't even meet with that Maryland, what is it, senator? Oh, it's all a publicity stunt too. Dude, happy Easter. You're traveling out of town to visit family this weekend. All right, man. Have fun. Have fun traveling, dude. Republicans are scared of these tariffs too. They don't understand economics. Some Republicans are, but a lot of the Republicans kind of calmed down. They kind of had a meltdown, and then when Trump brought the tariffs, the global tariffs down to 10%, they were like, "Oh, he's doing what we wanted." So it's, I mean, technically, the only reason he brought the global tariffs down was because of the bonds, but aside from JD Vance, who do you think will be the next best Republican candidate? Well, to me, it would be someone like in the MAGA lineage. So it would be someone like fringe outside, like Tucker Carlson. But I don't think that's a high chance of happening. I mean, you could say, well, Don Jr., because if Trump endorses his son, then his son is going to get it. But Don Jr. to me is just, nothing against Don Jr. I just don't think he's very likable, and I don't think he would run anyways. He said he's not going to. Let them waste their money. What, in terms of the GoFundMe's? Yeah, I mean, I guess. But in terms of like the Carmelo Anthony stuff, I think you can definitely read into like them donating to him and stuff. But yeah, the general thing is it's like whatever. You think I would beat AOC in a presidential debate? I think AOC would be very she would miraculously move to the middle on a lot of issues. But I mean, AOC is going to do the grift of, well, it's all the middle class. They're going to that's what they have to do. It's tax the rich, but I think they're going to. The thing with Democrats is they've kind of backed themselves into this weird corner where the only thing they say is like, "Oh, tax the rich." What does that even mean? Do you have like an actual tax rate? Do you like the Democrats need to come up with an actual plan on how to? And Bernie Sanders did a good job when he talked about like if we just took like 0.5 penny, like half of a penny off of every stock trade or whatever it is, how much money like that's what they really need to do. They need to come up with like creative ideas to make money while also not saying we want an 80% tax rate. Just not going to be accepted in this climate. Wishing you a blessed and happy Easter to you and your family. Luke, I appreciate it. RB, what's up, man? Been a while. Yeah, man, it's I haven't seen you in a while on here. Same thing with W. Every boomer you know are pissed that their retirements are tanked. I mean, how are they tanked though? Aren't they just back to where they were? Like, I'm not trying to gaslight people. They're back to where they were like 6 months ago. I mean, tanked feels like, oh, they're back to COVID levels. It's just not true. Will AOC ever smile? AOC, they're trying to like make AOC the new Bernie, so that's why they're doing these rallies with Bernie and AOC. Especially considering it's like an off year, 3 years until the election. They're definitely trying to prop up AOC in a way to get the young liberal vote energized. But it's just such a different, like AOC going out there. You'll get all the female vote, but you're not gonna get the male vote with AOC. Thoughts on Cody Almer setting Josh Shapiro's house on fire? Yeah, I think it was like a pro-Palestine. I predicted that it would be a pro-Palestine liberal, and that I believe that's who it was that did that to Josh Shapiro's house. It was pro-Palestinian liberals. I mean, they hated Shapiro's stance, because he's a liberal and he has that stance. Every boomer you know switched their 401ks to bonds years ago. I heard a lot of there was a lot of advisement for older people to switch to bonds. I mean, so what is it, like a subset of like 60-year-olds maybe that are getting killed by this because you switch over when you retire into bonds? Black approval is going to tank, and they have created a large number of racists because of this Carmelo situation. Yeah, I mean, but dude, black approval is going to tank in terms of like Americans' approval of that. Yeah, I mean, the racial dynamics will be interesting this summer, especially considering this is already starting right now with something like that, where it's a clear case of a white dude getting murdered there, and yeah, we'll see what happens. People are saying it's going to be another 2020. I don't know. I mean, I would probably take another race situation to ignite that. Meme coins are my retirement plan, dude. I gotta check the meme coins. I'm losing faith on weed coin. I really am. I mean, listen, I think it definitely has stabilized to the point to where we'll get another run before the 20th. I think we'll get a run. If we can get a run, I'll be happy. It's stabilized around like 1.3. I mean, I wish it would have went higher already, but the drop is coming on the 20th or the 19th. Drop is gonna come, but I mean, it's already dropped. So give us one more final run. Give us one more quick run when people start talking about 420. They front run it. Would you rather vote Kamala, Bernie, AOC? I mean, Kamala would be the most establishment liberal rather than the other two, which are further left. Trump halts Israel strike on Iran. Yeah, I talked about it. It's good news. I should do a tweet about that probably. I'll do that here in a second when I get off. Thoughts on what Base is doing? I mean, I think there's some good coins on Base. Base is just, it's the no fee version of. I mean, I would like there to be an actual good exchange on Base, similar to what Solana has with Phantom. That would be sweet, because yeah, like I use Uniswap for my base exchanges, and I don't like using Uniswap. It's just slow and it like lags, and I don't know. Maybe Base does have an actual exchange, but like Base, I like Base. I don't really have many coins on Base though, outside of like a few memes. But do you consider yourself a YouTuber or streamer? I would say YouTuber for sure. I mean, I think streamers is when all you do is stream, and then the only videos you post are clips of your streams. I honestly probably would say that's what a streamer is, which is really not what I do. I make videos specifically that are just YouTube videos, and I used to do, I mean, I still make a decent amount, but I mean, most of my money, pretty much like, 95% of my money comes from videos, not streams. So I would say I'm definitely just a YouTuber. Did any of the GOP people comment on the stabbing? Trump certainly did not. With the Metcalf, no, Trump didn't. I mean, that's where it becomes like, well, it's you would have liked to have seen something, him say something, but same thing with Vance, or like even have Vance say it. And you would think that would be right up Vance's alley in terms of like being a little bit more aggressive when it comes to that stuff, because he's younger and he's also the VP, not the president. AOC still doing rallies. Yeah, I'm sure she is. They do rallies on the weekends. You want an exclusive DG2 channel stream? Huh. That would be maybe a 20 views on that. Are the Obamas really getting divorced? I don't know what that situation is, honestly, because I saw a pretty crazy quote, which seemed like they were, but I don't know if it's just hearsay. Yeah, like this is a crazy quote. Is this real? I'm not divorcing Barack. I'm choosing me. Like, she shuts down divorce rumors. Oh, so she's saying she doesn't want to go to all these public events. She's drained from it. I think that's probably what she's insinuating. You're extremely passionate on Make America Healthy Again, but you think RFK really has an uphill battle. And just like the Epstein list, you'll believe it when you see it. Yeah, he's already doing some positive things. I don't know. It seems like people are saying he's walking back some of the vaccine stuff. I mean, you're fighting big pharma. There's just certain things. I mean, and some of the vaccines but we would assume safe. But I don't know. We'll see what RFK ends up doing. I mean, he already is at least promoting more health, at least at an aggressive rate compared to the previous administrations. Trying to get certain things out of our food. I mean, we'll see. Where's Mon? Yeah, Mr. Z. He was on for about an hour 10 earlier. We did a. You can go back and listen to it. It's at the beginning of the stream mainly, throughout the middle. But yeah, guys, that is gonna do it for this stream. Will you keep up the couch football content? I got asked that earlier. I don't know, man. We'll see. I mean, that would be in the fall, anyways. Like, I'm not gonna do videos on transfer portal or any of that stuff. It just doesn't make sense for me to do that. But that would be in the fall, just like predictions every week, I guess. I don't know, man. Polymarket odds for Obama divorce at 10%. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what happens with that. All right, guys. I'll see you.